The letter. Caballero. Panchito's secretary knows how to find him, and I had a face-off with Panchito, and he told me that his secretary knows him. I've already told Oscar that through Panchito's assistant we will talk to the secretary. Okay. Pocha says here that Panchito's secretary knew how to get in touch with the Caballero. The Caballero, as I told you, was someone who was between Colombia and Ecuador and had Pocha's merchandise. Panchito was the Colombian Hildebrando Alexander Cifuentes Villa, who testified in Pocha's trial in New York and said he was the left and right hand of the Pocha. Very proud of it, since he comes from a family where everyone is involved in the Ocran from the times of Pablo Escobar. Well, Pocha says he had a face-off with Panchito at the courts, and Panchito told him that his secretary knew Caballero. With that information, Pocha told his lawyer Oscar Manuel to reach out to Panchito's secretary through Panchito's lawyer because she was handling the shady stuff. And here I show you the picture of Panchito. The letter. Talking about Panchito Jota's brother, my friend tells me he doesn't stop talking, that he got Panchito tangled up with us and has him really tangled up. Here, Pocha says that speaking about Panchito Jota's brother, well, Jota is Jorge Milton Cifuentes Villa, a Colombian who naturalized as Mexican and was detained in 2012 in Venezuela. The following year, he was extradited to the United States and also testified in the trial against Pocha. Okay. Well, Pocha wants the Licenciado to know that his friend, the corrupt government official, told him that Jorge Milton couldn't stop talking in the United States, collaborating with the government, and got his brother Hildebrando entangled in it. Here, let me show you the photo of Jorge Milton Cifuentes. The letter says that once he gets there, he should plead guilty and declare whatever the lawyer tells him, and with Panchito's statements, their issues will be resolved. Pocha's friend from the government revealed that Jorge Milton supposedly had everything arranged for his brother Hildebrando in the United States with the prosecutor's office. As soon as Hildebrando arrived, he was supposed to plead guilty in court and say whatever the lawyer told him to, obviously. He's already been coached by Jorge Milton, and according to him, that should solve both their problems with the U.S. prosecutor's office. The letter. I talked to Panchito, and he says he's desperate to leave. I told him to shut up, but I know he'll do whatever Jay tells him. He told me he wouldn't say anything, but I know once he gets there, he'll fold. Pocha says that he had already talked to Panchito, also known as Hildebrando, and Hildebrando told him he was desperate to go to the United States. Pocha threatened him and told him to shut up and not to cooperate. But Pocha tells the Licenciado that he knows Hildebrando will do whatever his brother Jorge Milton tells him. According to Hildebrando, he told Pocha he wouldn't say anything. But Pocha, knowing him and hearing him say he was desperate to leave, obviously knew that once he arrived in the United States, he'd spill everything. On the other hand, I ask that Ricon's wife receive her bi-weekly payment. Send word to the secretary to encourage Ricon and tell the lawyer Oscar to speak with the lawyer from over there and have Ricon's wife communicate with the LIC. I'll also be speaking to the LIC Oscar. Here, Pocha tells the Licenciado that he needs to make sure Ricon's wife gets paid every 2 weeks. Ricon was someone who was imprisoned in Ecuador, working for both Pocha and the Licenciado. He had a rented warehouse in Ecuador and had stored merchandise, over 300 loski. And he also had quite a bit of equipment, which is why it was so important for Pocha that they sent a secretary to Ricon's family, not to encourage him, as he says in the letter, but to recover the merchandise. and Pocha asks the Licenciado to tell Oscar Manuel, the attorney, to speak with Rincon's attorney and also connect his wife with the attorney. Similarly, Pocha would be telling this to Oscar Manuel, the attorney. The letter. Please hurry Cleto up. I'll be sending messages through the lady. You do the same. Let me know anything through her. The Pocha asks the Licenciado to hurry up Cleto. Who is Cleto? Cleto was the boyfriend of one of Pocha's cooks and was a man from around Tamazula, Durango. This Cleto was in charge of producing the Fanta. That's why there's urgency. So Pocha tells the Licenciado to tell Cleto to hurry up with the production and selling of Fanta, and that money was given to Pocha's wife. Later, Pocha says he'll be sending messages with his wife, the twins' mom, and to also pass any messages to her with respect to Fanta. The letter. And about the three intellectuals, take it easy. My friend says that the Gueros have already taken away the campaign that they were bringing them. It's a conspiracy. We already know about those three. But there are more. When H is not involved with Enrique and the other two, then we will know. Nothing is hidden. Well, here the Pocha is saying that the matter of the three intellectuals, or rather the intellectual authors of the plan to put Pocha in place, should be taken calmly because they were being sought after, and that his friend, the government official, had told Pocha that the American agents, they had already taken away the campaign that brought intellectuals, claiming it was all a plot to get rid of those from Sinaloa, that it was already known about those three. But there were more. And the Pocha also says, when H isn't also involved with Enrique, here H is Panchito Idelbrando, and Enrique, well, you already know about Cesar Gastelum like I told you before, and as the Pocha always says, everything would be known because nothing stays hidden forever. The letter. I'll tell you, there's someone who's going to be really helpful. He has reached out to be at our service. I already let you know who it is through the woman. Here's Pocha saying to El Licenciado that someone was at their disposal who would be very useful. That person is the general of the military zone of Guadalajara, and he was placed at Pocha's orders with the only condition that he helped take down Chomen, and that he helped them clean up the Jalisco Plaza with the military. All this because of the helicopter that had been shot down, and the government was really angry. And the Pocha says that his woman, the mother of the twins, would personally tell the Licenciado who it was about. The letter. Compadre, say hi to Pollito. Tell them to give me a hand to get those two, and the one from Rincon as well. There are three rascals. The Frida I knew resigned, he was serious. He got resigned, and I came over here. It was easy for them to steal things from him. There's the debt of Enrique's brothers and the business partners. Hopefully we can recover that to pay and move forward. Here's Pocha saying hello to the Colombian partner and asking him to help with his people to collect from the chef, Caballero, and Ricon. That I already told you who they are, and that everyone had merchandise they hadn't delivered. Then it says that the Frida Pocha knew, referring to a Colombian, Frida was a code to refer to Colombians. And Pocha says that the Colombian he knew had been resigned, that he was honest, and everything got complicated because this person got resigned and Pocha got caught as well. And so the people who knew about the merchandise, seeing that the one who had it had resigned, and that the Pocha was locked up because it was easy for them to steal that merchandise. And so that merchandise, as we had already discussed, had been bought with the money he was cycling from the brothers of Cesar Gastelum because they had lent him merchandise. And Pocha was worried because that was going to be lost along with what the other partners, who we already mentioned were Yoma, Oscar, Mauricio, and Galdo, had. So that was Pocha's concern, wanting to recover that merchandise to pay everyone and move forward. These are the ways things are, so you all can see how this environment is. Pocha was asking the Gastelum brothers for merchandise on credit, while at the same time planning to give Caesar his resignation and knowing full well that the merchandise came from Caesar. That is complete shamelessness, don't you think? Finally, we have the farewell letter. Well, compadre, I send you a hug. Greetings to my godchildren, my comadre, your daughter, my compadres, your sisters, your mom, and your siblings. Your compadre who loves and appreciates you, JGL. And that's how this very short letter ends. Since it was very short, let me tell you an anecdote so you can also hear it. It's from when Pocha got the famous bomb, remember? In the episode with Don Juan the Commander, I told you they installed it on the gentleman. Well, sometime later, Pocha got one too. And this is the story of how he got it. The Pocha didn't want to risk putting that on and getting surgery in a clinic in Culiacan because he was afraid the information would leak and he'd end up getting caught at a clinic. Then he borrowed a truck from Yoma, like a trailer that was already perfectly set up as a clinic, as a mobile clinic. Inside the box, it had an operating room with everything needed for any type of surgical operation to be carried out. From the outside, the box looked like any normal trailer box, but inside it was very well equipped. Very well. So the doctors coordinated to carry out the operation. They took the trailer or truck to the Las Cañitas ranch, which I already told you about. They put it inside a warehouse so it wouldn't be seen from above if a helicopter or a drone passed by. And so that a trailer wouldn't attract attention at that ranch, they decided to put it in the warehouse instead. So, with everything ready, they proceeded to anesthetize the Pocha to start the operation and thus began. The doctor had said it was a simple operation and that the intervention would last approximately a maximum of 3 hours, and that the Pocha would be able to move. This is to avoid being at the ranch longer than necessary for safety reasons. But as you already know, nothing can be perfect. 3 hours passed, then the 4th hour, the 5th hour. Everyone there was very worried and kept knocking on the operating room door to ask what was happening. The operation taking much longer than estimated. Obviously, they were scared that something could happen to him like what happened to Amado. You all remember how Amado ended up in the middle of the operation. Well, the 6th hour passed, and as it got closer to 7 hours, the doctor finally came out saying the operation was done, but they had a problem, and Pocha almost didn't make it. Just like what happened with Amado, because according to the doctor, it seemed they had given him too much anesthesia, and they almost had a fatal outcome. The operation was already finished. Everything had gone well. But hours passed, and they couldn't wake up the Pocha. And everyone in the operating room was extremely scared, but thanks to God, they managed to wake up the patient. And then, the scouts reported that military personnel would enter the El Dorado area, so they had to get Pocha out immediately. From that place, obviously, he was still recovering and wasn't fully awake, so they carried him out. Half asleep, half awake, very erratic. He looked extremely unwell and couldn't fully articulate words. That's how Bravo and his guys put him in a truck and took him out of the area to settle him in a house. So time passed like that until finally the effect of the anesthesia wore off, and Pocha was back to his senses. The Bravo started to tell him everything that had happened, how he almost didn't wake up from the anesthesia during the operation, and how the military had come in. The pocha lost it and told the Bravo, "So this doctor almost had me resigned. Fine, he's going to pay dearly for his mistake. Because I won't forgive him for this, and the one resigned will end up being him." So he ordered the Bravo to give the doctor a ride, but by fate he saw his compadre Yoma and told him what had happened, since Yoma was the one who recommended that doctor, and Yoma said, in. When Pocha mentioned the doctor had confided in him about what happened, and even told him he was about to resign. Imagine, he almost died because the doctor didn't give him the right amount of anesthesia. And Yoma told his compadre to please not do anything to the doctor because he was a friend of his. And also he treated him quite often. And well, he had a good friendship with the doctor, so please, don't resign him. Well, sometimes operations, that's how they went. There were things that were out of people's hands and accidents happened, but the good thing was that everything turned out well, that it would just be one more unpleasant memory and nothing more. And because of that, the pocha had to give up on getting back at the doctor. But that's not the end of it, because Pocha was really upset. He went to another doctor who told him he might have lasting effects due to this. And guess what? There weren't any lasting effects, but the little pump wasn't working very well, according to Pocha, because the doctors were so nervous. They had made a mistake, so they had to replace the pump again, and that made Pocha burst with anger. But after that, the pump was in perfect condition. Pocha recovered at a ranch near El Dorado, a ranch called El Sinaloense. He stayed there several days until he could move completely fine. And then what followed is that he made quite a lot of use of that device, until one day when he was with his wife. Just imagine, I don't know how intense things were between them, but when they were in the middle of it, the woman burst the infamous pump. And oh man, it caused another scandal, and once again the doctor had to fix the darn pump. And, well, I leave out more details out of respect for the lady because I can't say her name, but she is very, very famous. Well, all of this happened because of that darn little bomb that caused headaches for Pocha. And don't get me wrong, I'm talking about the head from this head. Because I imagine they are going to think badly and well. I imagine that apart from the headaches, there was a moment of satisfaction. And notice another thing. Another person who didn't like the little bomb was Yoma, who also got it and had to remove it, since his body didn't take it well. So for those of you thinking of getting a device like that, think it over. Do your research, so you don't suffer later. All right, friends, we've reached the end of this episode. Hopefully you liked it. We're still working hard to bring you stories and anecdotes of all kinds. Don't miss the next episode. It's going to be very interesting like all the others because it's about everything that has been said in Culiacan because of the matter of Yoma and Kikeen. So I highly recommend it. Don't miss it. It's going to be hot, and you already know that you'll only find the unique and real narrative of the Ocran world here. A hug to you all, and see you next Friday. Until next time.